Blood is flowing, like what Ibn Kathir described in his book regarding what the Crusaders did to us in Jerusalem.
Israel's main defense is we are superior. Even if you think of invading or attacking, we will come down on you like there's no tomorrow. All of that's been shattered. So what they need to do is build that reputation again. And the way you do that, we're going to flatten Gaza.
Well, let me ask you, are they ready for this ground war?
The solution to 9/11 for America was the war on terror. And that didn't turn out very good. We got more terrorism in the world, and we got two invasions which have humiliated America. In many ways, this is Israel's 9/11 moment. And 9/11 didn't turn out good for America in the long run. It's not we don't have the capability here. At the moment, the Turkish armed forces are killing and launching airstrikes against the Kurds in Syria. The Saudi forces have been fighting in Yemen. In fact, not so long ago, the Turkish forces were fighting in Azerbaijan.
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Salatu wassalamu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Dear brothers and sisters, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. And welcome to Islamic Oasis. Dear brothers and sisters, every one of you is aware of what is taking place in Ard al-Mubarakah, all the way from Idlib to Al-Quds and Gaza. In the last few days, actually, we have been busy. We have been talking to brothers, scholars, activists across the land, across Sham. We had Dr. Shahjul Islam on just 2 days ago. He was talking to us regarding what's taking place in Idlib, especially after the killing of the cadets in Hama or Homs. And then, of course, the situation inside Gaza for the last now, moving almost 2 weeks or 11th day, let's put it this way. And this morning, the attack on the hospital that killed 500 people and injured over 600. And that's just one hospital, not counting the numbers since day one of the attacks. And then on the top of this, brothers and sisters, the whole situation, the situation with the armies of the Muslims, while every one of them, an army of, you can say, imagine a population of 100 million in Egypt, a population of a couple of million in Jordan, population of a couple of million in Lebanon and in Syria and all of these areas, subhanallah. We do know that Syria is going through its own revolution, but you have Qatar, you have UAE, you have Saudi Arabia, the so-called Khadimul Haramain Sharifain, who is watching the desecration of Masjid al-Aqsa al-Mubarak, and then he's shameless enough to call himself Khadimul Haramain Sharifain. So there is a lot going on, and alhamdulillah, in many ways, what's going on, dear brothers and sisters, is doing nothing more than exposing the traitor rulers, the mouthpieces and cronies of the West, who are sitting on the top of our heads. And now the Ummah is moving, and it's moving only in one direction. Why is it that the Muslim armies are not moving? Why? And this is the question we are posing to our brother Adnan Khan. Adnan Khan has been on this show many a times discussing many issues of the Ummah, what concerns the Ummah, the affairs of the Ummah. So we brought him back from Britain. And let's get into this discussion, inshallah. Welcome, Brother Adnan Khan.
Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum to you. I hope you're all well. And And it would have been better if we were talking in better circumstances, but it is what it is, inshallah, and Allah make it easy for everyone.
I mean.
And the way I see it is, look, in every crisis, there's also opportunity. And actually, a lot's been exposed, which I'm sure we're going to discuss. Many people have been hiding behind the issue, they're being exposed. Many people who sat on the fence, they're being exposed. And I think this is one of those unique events where you can't hide. You're either with the Ummah or you're against the Ummah. And I think our rulers, all of these people who facilitated a lot of what's been going on, really now being pushed into a corner. And we're at a point where almost had enough. 75 years we've been watching. I mean, the slaughter taking place now is all in the public eye. For years, these are peace-loving people. They experienced the Holocaust. They needed their own land, and they just want to live peacefully. All of this has been exposed. And really, since October 7th, what you've had is a public declaration of, in defense of Israel, we are launching strikes, we're going to do an invasion. And what you've got really is a slaughter taking place, and everybody can see it. Everybody can see what's going on. And that's why, if you're a ruler, if you're someone influential, really now you're going to have to take a side. And the Ummah is refusing to accept sitting on the side of being neutral now. And I think, inshallah, some good will come out of this.
Give me 1 second, Sheikh. Give me 1 second. There's constant, what is that, Brother Zain? You can hear the dididing. I don't know what's going on. It's happening every so often. Can you hear something, Sheikh, on the background every time we're speaking?
No, not me.
I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's... Yeah, so it's only on my side. No, not just that. Not that creaky thing.
Little buzz?
No, and it goes dididing. Then it's dididing every...
Okay. Oh, no, that was me joining. So I can listen to you guys. It's really good now.
Okay. All right, so should we start again?
Yeah, inshallah.
Just carry on from where we were. Oh, it's not live, is it?
No. Khalas, yeah, start. Go ahead.
Yeah.
And then he can cut it from here. No problem. Go ahead, Sheikh. So we were discussing, you're talking about the Ummah expects nothing else other than the armies to move. Maybe we are looking at expecting a coup d'etat anytime soon.
So what you've got now is, countries like Egypt, Jordan,
Yes.
Lebanon, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, the Gulf states. They can't now continue hiding. Now the Ummah is demanding something. 75 years, Ummah's had enough.
Yeah.
Ummah seeing two-state solution is a complete failure. Ummah seeing the Western leaders are openly supporting Israel. In fact, when they go on TV, even non-Muslim journalists are shocked.
Yeah.
That although, we believe Israel has the right to defend itself, but defense of yourself can't mean the complete slaughter
Of 2 million
of the
people,
Gaza
Sheikh.
Strip.
Yani, you're talking now, I mean, I wonder which politician or which media personality will come out and say killing of 500 people in one day and injuring 600 people, an attack on a hospital is justified? Or is it just another slaughter by Israel? I mean, look. So where is this going, Sheikh? Now tell me, you're talking about Erdogan sending an army to Turkey. You're talking about Saudi Arabia attacking Yemen. You're talking about on every, they've used all the Muslim resources to attack nothing but Muslim and Muslim interests. And now with all-out slaughter, genocide taking place, not one person wants to move.
So what you've got going on now is, there's a reason why America's sending 2 aircraft carriers and the Europeans are sending ships out there. They're worried that the rulers are over here and the Ummah's completely on the other side. And they're worried. Yes. Although they've given a blank check to Israel to defend itself, they know the repercussions here, it could spread. And really shows you once again that the rulers are not representative of the people. And because this, the Zionists are so arrogant that obviously they're telling their people, we're going to get revenge. We are going to defend our people. And out of their arrogance and hatred, They're very open on the global media, on what they think of Muslims. They think they're human animals, as the defense minister said. So now, it's not hidden. None of that's hidden. So, the Muslim rulers, it's not we don't have the capability here. At the moment, the Turkish armed forces are killing and launching airstrikes against the Kurds in Syria. The Saudi forces have been fighting in Yemen. In fact, not so long ago, the Turkish forces were fighting in Azerbaijan. The Jordanian forces and the Gulf armies buy the most military equipment from the West. You're going to do something with it, or you're just going to let them rust?
No, they let it rust so that after when they don't need anymore, they go buy and basically continue.
They go buy them again. And then Egypt, the country that has a border with Israel. If Egypt tomorrow was to rip up its peace treaty with Israel, that would be like Israel's worst nightmare. Because when Israel and Egypt made this peace agreement in 1978, what it meant was the south of Israel is secure. Egypt was the largest country, the largest army. So by Israel doing a peace deal with Egypt and Egypt accepting, what it now meant is Israel didn't have to worry about the southern border. Now, Sisi is already in a difficult position. The economy has gone down the drain. Sisi is using the iron grip over the people, and now you've got this going on in Palestine. And unfortunately, the Rafah crossing is still closed. They refuse to open it. That's a scenario we have. When Turkey sent a flotilla to Palestine a few years back, and Israel landed on there and killed some people, Erdogan cut diplomatic ties. He hasn't even done that here yet. Yeah. Is a Turkish life more valuable than a Palestinian life?
Of course.
Keep in mind.
No, but that's the reality, right? This is the reality they have fed us. I mean, the whole nation-state idea, nationalism.
So this is the thing. The worst thing is the nation-states we're talking about that our leaders are defending are then borders that Britain and France drew up. So they drew these borders to divide us. And now your foreign policy is determined by this. So now the truth is out there about Erdogan. Erdogan only talks about Palestine. When it comes to doing something, he's nowhere to be seen. In fact, he just made a statement that this is really, really bad. And he criticized Israel.
Sorry, people need to come together. There should be peace. Yeah.
He did more when the flotilla, when they were killed. And that was about 10 to 20 people. Here you've got hundreds, thousands being killed. So when it comes to the Kurds in Syria, when it comes to Azerbaijan, when it comes to Libya, when it comes to Greece, his army is ready, it's on standby. When it comes to Palestine, it's all talk. And the reason why I'm singling out Erdogan, because Erdogan built his profile on, I'm here to defend Palestine for the Ummah. You could argue the other rule. Sisi never said that. Sisi never said, I'm here for the Palestinians. Erdogan did. Erdogan built his whole profile like that. So where is he in their time of need? He can't say we lack capability. He can't say we don't have a military force. Your military's been very busy for the last 10 years. Really what you've got here, he needs to decide you are either with Israel or you're with the Ummah. There's no in between anymore.
So Sheikh,
and all those people that were fans of Erdogan, you need to start measuring Erdogan by his action, not by what he says. It's easy at the Davos summit to have a go at the Israeli leader. What are you doing though to protect them? Now they are openly saying we're going to slaughter these human animals. They have already started the slaughter. We haven't even seen the main attack yet. This is the pre-attack, they call it. When you soften your targets, this is what they're doing at the moment. So 500 people die in a hospital because they're softening up their targets. What do you think the main attack's going to be? And, put your position if you're an Israeli leader. When you're deciding this plan to launch an assault, are you worried, some Muslim rulers might not like this. They might attack me. They might criticize me. The Israeli leaders don't even have to worry about the Muslim leader. It's not even a factor in their thinking. That's how useless the Muslim rulers are. They're not even worried that, okay, maybe we're going a bit too far. Maybe, look, Erdogan, he's been good with us, yeah? I think Netanyahu said before that Erdogan criticizes us and then he's good with us at the same time. Netanyahu's not even thinking the MBS, we were doing normalization. This might affect normalization. In In Israel's eyes, the Muslim rulers are so useless, they're not even a factor in his decision making. He knows, I don't need to worry about the Muslim rulers. I can do a slaughter. These guys are going to do nothing. That's how low level our rulers are. And the worst thing is, our rulers could do something. They've got the capability. So what's going on here? They are choosing not to do anything. One is, you're a weak country. You're like Zimbabwe. You're like New Zealand. You're like Finland. You're a small country. You have nothing. Turkey is involved in all the key issues in the world. Yeah, so it has the capability. So I would say, look, you've got a spectrum. You've got military action on one side, then you've got diplomatic. At the moment, Turkey's not even cut diplomatic ties. Egypt should rip up the peace treaty. How can there be peace when they're slaughtering like hundreds of people? Jordan, why do you have a peace treaty with these people who are massacring Muslims? Those are just beginning.
Isn't this clear that they don't look at these things as Muslim or kufr issues? This is just, so look, Sheikh, so we are very clear that the rulers, that these people have no interest of the Muslims in mind. They care nothing about the Muslims, and they hate us and we hate our rulers. It's very clear. And as the Prophet ﷺ said, the time will come that they will hate you and you will hate them. And so the time is here. We hate them. We want them out. People are protesting. People are trying to get into the borders. Look at Jordan. People are being tear gassed by their own armies, by police. You have a whole situation with. But Sheikh, Egypt, the population is nowhere to be seen, except in that little Azhar. There was, in the Azhar compound, there was a little bit of clapping and the things that they usually do. Clap a few times like women, and they go back in their homes. And this, most of the Arabs, actually, to be honest with you, it's one thing to be angry at the rulers. That's for sure. But you look at the rest of the Arabs, Sheikhi, all they come on the streets and they've been clapping on the streets and a few slogans, and they go home to sleep their nice sleep. What the hell has happened to our own manhood and our own... something wrong, Sheikh. They lost their manhood, all of them.
No, so we're going to put this into context.
No, I am. Believe me, I know I'm angry, but to be honest, that's the least.
If we look at what's been going on for the last 10 years ago, we were talking about the rulers being overthrown. You had the Arab Spring going on. The rulers, the architecture in the Middle East was shaking. And we saw Ben Ali in Tunisia.
No. But see, look, Sheikh, the architects were moving because they didn't get enough to eat, it seems like. The Egyptians and the Jordanians and these guys, they weren't getting enough to eat. They weren't giving them enough bread and rice. So now they seems like they got it, maybe a little bit. Because the blood of the Muslims doesn't matter.
You'd be surprised. The economic situation in the Middle East, Egypt's rock bottom when it comes to that.
No.
They're struggling to feed and eat themselves at the moment. And then now this has kicked off.
Understood,
yeah?
But Sheikh,
Iran,
you're seeing women and children slaughtered on wholesale. Blood is flowing, like what Ibn Kathir described in his book regarding what the Crusaders did to us in Jerusalem. Blood. And none of these people are. There is no movement. Especially Egypt. I understand that there are 60,000.
Remember, it's only been a week and a bit. We're still in the early part of this. Opinion can shift, and sometimes it takes time to move. Other times it can shift really, really quickly. What you're seeing, though, is look, the rulers themselves are worried. That's why it's not surprising America sending aircraft carriers, because Israel doesn't need aircraft carriers. Israel's fighting a land war. These aircraft carriers aren't for Israel. These aircraft carriers are if the rulers can't deal with their population relative to what Israel's about to do. So they're worried. They're like, we're supporting Israel. Israel's got to defend itself. We don't want to show... Because remember, on 7th October, Hamas and the other groups really undermined Israeli invincibility. Like the Israelis are in shock what happened. They've taken hostages. They made it 15 miles into Israel. They even took hostages from the army. That's never happened before. They carried out a complex operation which they've never seen before. In fact, 7th of October, which is a Saturday, on the 6th of October, the Middle East was the most peaceful region it's ever been. Netanyahu was normalizing relations with Saudi. The resistance, what resistance? That was the reality on the Friday. On the Saturday, all that's been turned upside down. It's completely changed. Normalization, forget it. Yeah. In fact, Israelis took pride that we've got the best intelligence and surveillance network in the region. That's gone completely out the window. In fact, as non-Muslim journalists keep saying, it seems many Muslims around the world were celebrating on 7th of October rather than, having some sympathy. Right? And so a lot of people have been trying to understand that. So, we're still in the early days yet. And, in the Arab world especially, Egypt, Tunisia, Libya, Lebanon, these sort of places, Iraq, Iran, the economic situation has been bad for a while. There's been tension. I mean, in Iran, you've got potentially uprisings going on. Lebanon's a collapsed state. This is the context this is happening. So this isn't like the Arab Spring 10 odd years ago, where out of nothing you had this uprising. What side are you on? What
Sheikh,
you've got
hold on.
here
No, hold on. Look, we have to. I think what we need to make sure that, Sheikh, you're talking about 2 million people trapped, and 1 million, 2 million people being told to leave Gaza and to go into Egypt. You're talking about electricity has been cut off, water has been cut off, food has been cut off, and a country like Egypt, which is literally their neighbor, has completely put a blockade. Now you have a hospital attack, 500 people killed in the compound of the hospital, 600 people injured. People are moving from one border to another border, so whatever Gaza means right now, 25 miles. And you're telling me that the Egyptians are worried about economy. I mean, is this the state of the Ummah, that nothing matters to the Muslims of Egypt other than their stomachs?
No, when you look across the Arab world, you see an outpouring of support for what's going on. People are actually quite shocked what's going on in the impending invasion. What you've got now, is that needs to now translate into a number of political actions. And one of them has to be pressure on their rulers. So what you're finding, we're at that period where people are disgusted, people are shocked what's happening, and they're determining, okay, what specifically do we want to happen? Do we go to the international community? Do we tell the armies that they should move? Do we look at our rulers? That's the situation they're in at the moment in the Arab world. In the Western world, you find it's a lot more clearer. People are calling openly for the armies to move. You see, Muslims who reside in the West, it's like, for a lot of Muslims, I've had enough. 75 years, time and time again, we're seeing the slaughter of the Muslims. People who called for UN intervention, people who called for lobbying the West, they all now are changing their view. They all now are clearly of the view that we actually want to see military action. In fact, we're probably getting to a position now where what does that physically mean? That wasn't a discussion 10, 15 years ago. And this is another problem amongst a whole host of other issues we've got. And all of these issues are man-made. All of these issues are because of our rulers. This is another one. And Palestine is one of those issues which transcends all the national states. You're Pakistani, you're Turkish, you're Egyptian, wherever you're from, it's an issue for you. So this is quite unique. We can't fast on the same day. We don't do either the same day, but on Palestine, we're united. So really what this now needs to do is translate into a set of political actions. Now, what I mean by that is we want to see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That pressure needs to build. The rulers need to sense that your position is, there's a question mark over it unless 1, 2, 3, 5 happens. And already there's been talks, Jordan's trying to push, let's call for a ceasefire, because if anything more happens, he knows he's going to have a massive problem.
When was this?
That's
Today
what
or yesterday? Because it has
this
already
is
happened.
last few days. Because
I mean, now the killing in
Blinken-
the hospital, 500 people killed in one day. I don't know what else do they need.
yeah. So that's happened. Well, that's literally today.
Yes,
That's happened, and that
just a few hours
information
ago. Yes.
coming up. So I was mentioning at the beginning that with all these crises comes opportunity. From an Israeli perspective, they do these massacres for their own people. What they don't realize, these massacres have long-term implications. You are uniting the Ummah more. You're making the Ummah much more clearer on what the problem is. They are, in many ways, digging their own grave in the long run. That's what they're really doing here. For them, for Netanyahu, I would say, this is a very short-term thing, which is, I got a bloody nose, and I want to teach you a lesson. And this is exactly what America did after 9/11.
If the ground invasion happens, fine. I do understand that Netanyahu he's got a bloody nose. There's protests taking place inside Tel Aviv. People are angry at that this guy. He screwed up really bad this time. And then you have, but yani, if there is a ground invasion, is what is Israel expecting this ground invasion to be? Is it happy that it has to do this? Because it has to know. I mean, I was listening to David Petraeus the other day. Yesterday, he gave an interview. Maybe you got a chance to hear it. And he was basically saying on CNN, I think it was on, he was saying that, look, and also George Bush got into it, the George W. Bush. Both of them were saying that, look, you're fighting bloodthirsty people. You're going to have to, once you get in there, you're going to have to fight house to house. There's booby traps everywhere. Well, let me ask you, are they ready for this ground war? They want this ground war? Do they want to go into a lizard hole like this?
So in many ways, you've seen a lot of 9/11 discourse come out again. This is their 9/11. And 9/11, the solution to 9/11 for America was the war on terror. And that didn't turn out very good. We got more terrorism in the world. We got ISIS, and we got two invasions which have humiliated America. In many ways, this is Israel's 9/11 moment. And 9/11 didn't turn out good for America in the long run. Look at the dysfunction in America today. The problem is there's no long-term strategy here. What you've got here is we've been undermined. They carried out an attack into Israel, and we have to respond because Israel's main defense is we are superior. Even if you think of invading or attacking, we will come down on you like there's no tomorrow. All of that's been shattered. So what they need to do is build that reputation again. And the way you do that, we're going to flatten Gaza. We're telling every Palestinian, every Muslim, you attack us again, this is what the response is going to be. Now, all of that is fine as long as within a week or two you flatten Gaza. If in 2 weeks you haven't flattened Gaza, you have got a massive problem. And this is the problem America had in Afghanistan. They overthrew the Taliban within a month or two. But as Taliban said, we've got the time, you might have the watches. In the long run, they undermined America. They came back, they played the long game. The problem Israel's got is you're doing urban warfare. In urban warfare, the advantage is to the defender. Like the defenders of Afghanistan had the advantage of America because of the terrain. So I think there's a question here. It's been 8-9 days. Why haven't they invaded?
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
That's because they know
what's waiting.
The waiting is they are realizing now that victory is not guaranteed. And what is victory here? Because this isn't, you're going to invade, you're going to set up a new government, you're going to have an agent ruler who's going to be loyal to Israel. This literally is, we just want blood because of what you did. So there's no two-state solution, no normalization. That is a ridiculous military objective. And people always talk about this. What was America's objective in Afghanistan when it invaded? Was it regime change? Was it not regime change? Everyone that fought in Afghanistan said we were unclear what the objectives were. This is purely, so if Israel does nothing, well, you're not very powerful. This will tell every other group you can attack Israel. This is what they're doing. But you're not just firing from the air. You got to put troops on the ground. When you put troops on the ground, you are fighting at the strength of the Palestinian resistance groups. And remember, Israel just has to lose some soldiers, and this will cause problems in Israel. We can lose loads of Palestinians, yeah? We got our beliefs. They don't. And I think this is what's being weighed up now. In fact, I'm seeing the last 24 hours, there's a lot more calls for what if in a week or two, what if in a week or two you're bogged down? What if in a week or two there's too many? Already, you know, the families of the hostages, they've set up a movement to get rid of Netanyahu. Once the dust has settled, Netanyahu is finished anyway.
Yeah,
his coalition government.
He knows politically.
His coalition government already got the knives out. They're waiting. Let him screw this up, and we'll go in. And remember, there's no talk about two-state solution. There's no talk about long-term here. This is purely you attacked us, and we got a bloody nose. We have to respond. And what a lot of non-Muslim journalists are doing in the Western world is the whole issue started on the 7th of October. Forget the whole of history. It started on the 7th of October. Israel had the right to defend itself. Do you condemn what Hamas did? And the Muslims are all saying, let's step back. Let's look at the last 75 years. This hasn't come out of nowhere. It's not in a vacuum. This is a response to what began for 75 years. And what I'm seeing is Israel is having to force a narrative. Its narrative is struggling for legitimacy on the social media, on the mainstream media.
They tried the 40 babies. They tried the 40 babies slaughtered. Their heads are. They were supposedly.
So people are questioning that.
None of this is moved. Now tell me, Sheikh, the 40 babies didn't move. Didn't really work. But so now you have 500 people killed. And, probably good 70% are babies.
See, what you would have had here is 20 odd years ago, Muslims would know about this, but nobody else will. Now, because of social media, non-Muslims are hearing about this as well. So, Zionists have a lot of influence over mainstream media. Social media, internet is decentralized. Nobody controls it. So that's why people are finding out a lot more of what's... You got non-Muslim journalists who go to Palestine and live there. You got documentaries by Vox on life in the West Bank. You didn't have that 20, 30 years ago. You would never show that on a mainstream channel. Now with the internet, you've got these prestigious channels, and they've shown what life is like for Palestine. There's 600 checkpoints in the West Bank. So this ground invasion, this is not some straightforward military operation. And it seems they're now recognizing that this is going to be complicated. And actually, the fact that they've openly said we're going to do the ground invasion, it means that Hamas and all the other groups are ready. And yeah, probably more Muslims will die. But remember, they are more sensitive to deaths than we are.
Why is that? Because our aqidah that we are going to Jannah? Or is it that we know our values, our life really, we don't have any other choice but to... look, I understand. Of course, our aqidah is... وَلَا تَحْسَبَنَّ اللَّهَ غَافِلًا.
But there's another thing as well, that look, the Zionists, yeah, what they've done is they sold a dream to their people, which is we deserve this land. The Bible gave us this right. And because we're victims of the Holocaust, we're coming back home. And what they do is they wash over the fact that you expelled the indigenous people. They brush over the fact that there's people living in Jordan today, 75% of the population. They are alive today. They were kicked out of historic Palestine. So they've sold this dream that we've come back home, and the Israeli state represents all Jews globally, and we're going to protect them. Yeah. And the thing here is, firstly, they don't represent all Jews in the world. In fact, most Jews don't even live in Israel. Majority of Jews live outside Israel. The Jews actually have there's many Jews, they don't believe in nationhood. They don't believe in this nationalism that we see that of an Israeli state. And we see in Israel, they discriminate against black Jews and against Arab Jews. Right? So they've got their own divisions there. So what you find is everything they've sold to Jews, none of it is true. And as these become exposed, the Jews, they feel vulnerable. And really, the Israeli state was supposed to be their defense. And if the Israeli state can't defend them, you've got a massive problem. So you find, Noam Chomsky, you got Finkelstein, these guys are Jews, they come out openly and they say, Israel's an apartheid state. Israel's doing all of those things to the Palestinians that we were victims of in the past in our history. That's what you got going on there. And that's why, they try to do this on mainstream media, paint that Muslims all hate Jews. And that's not true. We don't even see the Jews as one civilization anyway. There's different types of Jews. And again, if aliens came to Earth and took over Palestine, we would resist. If Hindus took over Palestine, we would resist. Because Zionists took over Palestine, that's why we're resisting. The fact that they're Jews has got nothing to do with it. But what they're trying to say is, if we weren't Jews, you would have accepted it. What person accepts occupation? Your belief, your background is irrelevant. If you've kicked me out my house, if you've seized it, if you've taken over my village, I'm going to resist. What your beliefs are is irrelevant. What they're trying to say is, no, if we weren't Jews, because you've got hatred of Jews, you would have been different. And this has all been exposed now because, look at Islamic history. We live side by side. Where did the Jews go after the Spanish Inquisition? Some Jews actually say, if it wasn't for Islam, Judaism was on the verge of extinction. Because the Romans had kicked the Jews out. The Jews were spread all over the world. But when Islam came, Islam recognized there were Jews, they had a belief. So they were able to prosper alongside Muslims. And in fact, in Palestine, you always had the Arab Jewish population, although they were very small in number. The Jews, the Zionists who dominate Israel, these were European Jews. They came from Europe and they're settler colonialists. They took over the territory. That's actually what's happened there. And they're trying to expel the people. 75 years, they still haven't expelled the people. If what happened on 7th October happened after 75 years, that shows you that their settlement and their occupation is nowhere near complete. In fact, it's struggling for survival. And if this happened after 75 years, what do you think is going to happen going forward? And then put into the mixture, there's 300, 400 million Muslims in that region. They're only 9 million.
Almost 500 million. Yeah, that's true. 520 million,
So,
I think. If you
so
count.
obviously, the founders of Israel and the Israeli leaders, they have to show the Israeli people we're under threat. We're under threat. We need to be united. We need to invest in our government. Only the government can protect us. Yeah, it's similar. This is the dream. This is the dream Muhammad Ali Jinnah gave to the Muslims in India. We need our own state. We need our own place. Yeah, never really explained how he was going to do that. What the strategy was. That's exactly what these guys are doing. And if they can't protect Jews, if people are realizing you seize the land, you're settlers, then the whole reason and narrative for the existence goes out the window. So they want to make it into a racist military issue. It's actually not a racist military issue for us. It's all about occupation, right? And interestingly, I was just reading the other day that, when the first Zionists came over in the 1920s, they actually worked and lived with Muslims in Palestine. They didn't realize what these European Jews were doing. It was later on where they realized they're taking over our businesses, they're taking over our land. At that point, it was too late. And the biggest problem was Britain occupied Palestine from 1917. And it was Britain that facilitated their arrival. So then once they were there in numbers, they took over the land. And obviously the Muslims at that point were divided. The Ottomans had collapsed as well. So there's so many things against Israel, strategically, economically, geographically. So they have to keep this narrative that we're the victims, we're right, is these Muslim aggressors. They just hate Jews. That's the narrative they keep giving. But the problem is they keep carrying out atrocities, but that's what you do when you occupy. That's what the Algerians did. That's what the Brits did. That's what the Portuguese, that's what the Dutch did. When you colonize, how do you deal with the people that rebel? You kill them, you massacre them. And now we're just seeing that all over social media. So they're losing the intellectual war. They're losing the information war. And for a long time, it was difficult to even engage in the information war because the Palestinians would get no media coverage. Now that's completely changing. And on top of that, you've got this burning desire in the Ummah now that, look, enough's enough. This is blessed land. Enough's enough. How can these guys get away with doing what they're doing? Right? And you're seeing much more calls now that the Muslim rulers have to do something. They have to do something, from.
So what does the scenario look like, Sheikh? I mean, let's say, inshallah Rabbul Alameen, somebody gets their act together and says, finally, Jannah is more important than 2 days in dunya. And what would be the scenario? I mean, all out war, and there'll be planes flying over Tel Aviv. What's the deal? Yani, how are we?
So no, I don't see it like that. The reason why is I don't actually even think the Muslim Ummah, the rules need to go that far. I think if you start from we're cutting ties, already that creates a big problem for Israel. Remember, Israel spent 75 years trying to normalize its existence.
I understand that,
If
but
the
there has
rules
to be some
say-
type of retribution, Sheikh. There has to be reciprocation. And
No. So
you're talking
So
about some
remember
type of
here-
reciprocity where these people have what they have done in the last 10 days. I mean, this is. I don't know how do you.
no, see, the way you got to look at this, yeah, is Israel has supply lines that allow it to exist. Those supply lines go to each of the Arab countries around it. If those Arab countries cut those supply lines, they're finished. That's why I say military action is one end of the spectrum. Yeah, there's loads of other things. You cut them one by one, they know they're finished. So 50% of Israel's water comes from Jordan. The Middle East oil, none of it's in Israel. All of it's in the Gulf and Saudi. You need oil in a modern country. Yeah, agriculture, I think 30-40% of Israel is desert. Only 20% of Israeli land you can use for agriculture. So Israel relies on trade. Israel is dependent upon trade. And the easiest country to trade with are the ones who are on your borders. So that's why Israel needs normalization. What Israel's saying is, just treat us like a normal country. Accept we won. Accept we're here. And let's trade. We buy agriculture off you, you give us oil. That's what they want. So that's why it was so dangerous what Saudi Arabia was doing. If the Sunni leader normalizes, why would Pakistan not normalize? If the Sunni leadership in the region is normalizing relations, the gatekeepers, the managers of the caretakers of Makkah, Medina, then what argument is there for anybody else not to? And on the day before the 7th of October attack, that is what Netanyahu was saying. He was saying that if Saudi normalizes, we've made it. The Sunni leader, yeah? And in 24 hours, that's gone upside down.
But Sheikh, let me, from the intelligence perspective here, you don't think anyone knew that this, the idea that the Egyptians kind of knew about the situation, and then they were. Let me ask you this here. So there is a theory out there that the Egyptians did know and they did warn Netanyahu. Netanyahu didn't take it seriously. And then there is that discussion that the Egyptians may have felt kind of put aside because there was, Saudi was becoming the main leader of the region, and Egypt, which gets about second most aid from the United States. If Egypt is no longer needed to keep the peace, Saudi Arabia will. Do you think Egypt was trying to tell this area to Israel that look, there is either take this as a warning or take this as a warning? How do you, meaning that we can do some things here, so don't take them for us aside.
There's a few things playing here. So a number of retired Israeli military men and officials have said some things don't add up. In the south of Israel, Gaza is in lockdown. The security, in fact, I met a brother who's married to a Palestinian woman, and she goes, I've been to Gaza. Like, this is impossible.
I've been to
Gaza
Gaza.
is in lockdown.
I was in Gaza. I was in Gaza for a week.
Lockdown.
I was in Palestine 3 months.
Yeah. So they are questioning how is this possible. So there is an issue.
Man, it's I don't understand how the heck. Subhanallah, man.
On the other hand, I think look at it like this: the day before Friday, yeah. If me and you were the Israeli cabinet, why would we
don't do this comparison, please.
Yeah, I was just
because I can't. No, Sheikh, please. So put me with the Egyptians or the inshallah maybe the Pakistanis or somebody.
No, so me and you, we're on the cabinet, yeah, and our focus is the West Bank. West Bank has got a larger population. We got settlements there. That's where most of the army is. It's a religious holiday, right? Where they're going to be a threat. Gaza? We got Gaza under lockdown. When the last time Gaza did anything? Gaza fire rockets once in a while. Right? We're normalizing relations with Saudi. The resistance in Palestine is finished. That was the context. In that context, why would we, as cabinet members, be worried about Gaza? You wouldn't in that context. What's happened in Gaza? 2006, something happened. 2012, something happened. It's been quiet for the last decade. We've got it under wraps. Yeah. That's the first issue I think you've got to keep in mind.
So they were more concerned about West Bank, you're saying, more than even...
Because West Bank is much larger territory and you've got settlements there. Like Gaza is what? It's a small territory, but they're using technology to monitor it. They're using technology, like they control all the in and outs. They control the airspace, they control the sea. That's different to the West Bank. West Bank is mountainous in the hills. You've got settlements all over the place. You've got a larger population. That's where you're using to put your security. That's where the expectation is. If something kicks off, it's going to be there. Gaza, look, if something kicks off, it's 2 million people, but we got plenty of technology monitoring them. Now, it's not clear what exactly the Egyptians said, because they say we told them something big is going to happen, right? And this reminded me, you know, when the coup was done against Erdogan in 2016, when the court case was going on about the coup, they interviewed Erdogan's son-in-law, who was the head of security, he was the head of intelligence. And they said to him, when did you find out something wasn't right? And he goes, about 11 a.m. And they go, what did you feel wasn't right? And he goes, there was troop movements which wasn't normal. So they go, so when did you inform the head of the army that something's not right? He goes, in the evening about 5, 6 o'clock. So they go, so why didn't you tell him in the morning? And he goes, because I get intelligence every day of funny troop movements. Because for me, the day of the coup, it started as a normal day. So the point being is, you know, the Egyptians telling the Israelis something's not right. That's what they always tell the Israelis. That's just another, that's why Netanyahu doesn't even consider them. That's just normal. The Egyptian always says something's going on. And secondly, why would we think on the Friday, on the 6th of October, when the Egyptians say this, that something big is going to happen when for the last 10 years, nothing big has happened? So I think when you put these together, it does balance out a bit. And the final thing I will say,
but you're telling, but hold on, but you're telling me that this operation, no intelligence organization knew about this at all. And okay, let me put it also this way. Is Hamas or you know, Al-Qassam brigades or Saraya Quds or whoever, are they sincere to what they're doing now, Sheikh? I mean, I know.
As far as they're concerned, they're resistance movement. They are under occupation,
right?
And they're fighting the occupier, right? And look, we're sitting outside, we're looking at it. You know, when you're under occupation, it can be a bit different, and that's why sometimes when people are occupied, they do things which doesn't help their cause in the long run. But because they're under occupation, because they're oppressed, they think anything is good enough. So that's why you find, you know, the South Africans, they carried out terrorist attacks against the British, and Nelson Mandela and these guys were all terrorists then. Then all of a sudden they became freedom fighters, So you get that. I think the other thing to keep in mind is, no matter how good your intelligence is, it's a person who has to interpret it. So Israel learned this lesson in 1973 when they had the war with Egypt and Syria. They could see the movements. They could see the troops were moving on the Suez Canal. But the people who got the intelligence, you know what they said? We slaughtered the Arab armies in 67. They were so arrogant, they said the Arab armies culturally cannot fight. So when they saw the troop movement, they said, they can't be going to war with us. That's just stupid. So they had the information, they had the intelligence, but what did they do? They talked it away because of the opinions they had. And this is the point I'm making. On the 6th of October, resistance is finished. Normalization is going. We're strong. What's the worst they can do? So even if they had intelligence, something big is coming, that goes against everything you've had for the last 10 years.
Okay,
And
so
this is why in 1973, they actually put things into place, which is they created a committee, and any action they do, everyone had to agree. But what they said is all the intelligence in 1973 was there, but they refused to accept it because they had hardened opinions that the Arab armies are finished.
but also, Sheikh, 1973, it seemed that Anwar Sadat was killed when? 73, 75, 72? When was he killed?
So he was later.
It was later. It seems like, Lanatullah alayh. But, this, there is another theory that said that Anwar Sadat or the Egyptian leadership was looking for some type of, an excuse to say that, look, either you give us a win or you give us certain scenario where they can say,
look, let's be clear.
I mean, that happened 73. I mean, are we saying, I'm playing in some way devil's advocate here. I mean, say that, is Saudiya, Al-Salul, Lanatullah alayh, is he asking for some type of a scenario where he can justify to his population that, look, either it's a bloodletting like this, it will continue on, and we just have to, I'm going to go in, I'm going to bring in peace. Let's say Salul comes in with his entourage and signs some type of a treaty, and then let's say it makes this looks like such an amazing deal for both the Arabs and the Jews. And is that a possibility, Sheikh?
So look, normalization is the biggest thing that's been affected by this. Israel's going to carry out a massacre now. So I'm not sure how this would help Saudi Arabia.
You're talking about shameless people in the region, Sheikh. Look, I'm sorry. You have you think I don't think the Arabs will move. To be very honest, if Arabs wanted to move, they would have moved already. You're talking about children are being slaughtered in front of these people's eyes, and these people are worried about their stomachs and their jobs and their economy. And you're talking about people who have become complete. I mean, they look. And what I am looking at, again, I mean, inshallah, you're right and I'm not. But what I am looking at, that we are going towards normalization is ways you cannot imagine. That Saudi Arabia will come in and bring in a huge, it will say that, look, where are you going to put the Jews? Where are they going to go? Israel is normal now. Let's two state, whatever. And then monitorization of some type where they monitor, maybe Saudi monitors, maybe Egypt monitors Gaza, or even is it a possibility to give Gaza in the hands of Egypt to monitor it?
But the problem they've got now is normalization is frozen now because of what Israel is doing. So this doesn't serve Israel's interest, what happened. And if normalization was the way Saudi was going to get the defense deal with America, that's all up in the air now. But Saudi's now said that normalization talks have stopped. So if the agenda was to sell out, well, that's all stopped at the moment. So can you see this? This isn't in any of the Arab rulers' interests, this really. Because normalization was going on in the background, and this has all stopped it now. Now, if Israel massacres like it's going to do, which Muslim ruler can be seen normalizing when look at what the Israelis have done? Yeah. The other thing to keep in mind is, in our country, there's a bit of a history where the rulers sell out on their people and the army loses. We've seen that in the past. Israel doesn't have a history. You don't have a history where army generals sell out to achieve something else. You've never really had that in Israel because their thing is Israel as a nation has to survive. Whilst in our countries, the rulers themselves want to survive on their throne. So if it helps their throne to sell their people out, they will do it. You've not seen, in Israel, they've never sold out the people. You've had a bit of corruption internally, but you've never had a war with the Arab world where they're sold out because it benefits an individual Israeli leader. That's something, unfortunately, our rulers do. So, when Ali Abdul Saleh says, America can do a drone strike in my country, but I'll take credit. When the Pakistani leaders are saying America can drone and we say we're doing it. You don't get that you don't even see that in a non-Muslim world. You don't see the West kill their own people. Yeah, you've seen abuse of power, obviously, individual politicians. Yeah, so that's why I think yes, there's a possibility. There's something that don't add up. Yeah, and keep in mind, if you look at the operation, yeah, what did they do? They broke through the fencing and security, which is significant. But more importantly, it was their numbers and coordination. They went in different directions. They took over a military base for most of the day. They took hostages. They've never done that before. I've seen some statements from Hamas. They said even they were shocked at their lack of military presence. So obviously, because they are victims, because they're under oppression, in that scenario, what do? You monitor your enemy. You monitor your master. You try to learn what they're doing when they're doing. Yeah, and you take advantage. But if you look back now, let's take away the lives, because to be honest with you, Israel kills hundreds of people every day. If you take the lives issue out of it, they got 15 miles in. Okay, that's significant, but it's not great. You took some hostages, fine. You've not taken over new territory. Gaza hasn't expanded. So from a military perspective, what this is we gave you a bloody nose. We reminded you, and normalization, Palestine was not on the table. When Saudi, America,
that's what I'm saying.
Israel,
that's what I'm saying. Look, Egypt was not on the table. Palestine, even themselves, no one was asking them if they cared or didn't care anymore. It didn't really matter anymore.
So doesn't that tell us that they've undertaken this operation to say, look, we're here.
Okay, so we do matter.
We need to so that's evidence for this was a proper operation, and they did it to show them that you can't sell Palestine. We got to be at the table.
Okay, so but Sheikh,
that's evidence. If you look evidence for what we saw was legitimate.
But Sheikh, can Hamas survive without Egypt or without Qatar, without UAE, without Saudi Arabia?
In the long term, they can't. They're a resistance movement. They are reliant upon resources. They rely upon supplies. Like I mentioned, the day before the attack, what's the most they did? They sent rockets into Israel. These rockets are very ineffective. In fact, you know what these rockets are?
One time, 500 or something, or 1,000, I think 500.
Yeah, but these are rockets. But remember, these are very low grade. They are not quality stuff.
Oh, I understand. I mean, you can see
when they fire the rockets,
firecrackers.
When they fire the rockets, Israelis think we're under siege. What they don't realize is these rockets have very little. These rockets, let me tell you what they are. The rockets and missiles Israel fires, they get the metal, they melt it, they turn it into a rocket, they use fertilizer and some other chemicals, and they fire back. It has no accuracy, no nothing. But their aim is, remember, when rockets go close to Israeli towns, they run for cover. It's a weapon of mass disruption. It's not a weapon of mass destruction.
Yeah, it looks like. I mean, they just want to keep them constantly under
Israelis are used to this.
Sirens
Israelis are
all over the place.
These guys are going to. And remember, the south of Israel is very deserty. The population in the south of Israel is not huge, right? So that's why a lot of these rockets land in empty areas. The problem is when these rockets go further, right? And it's not they cause damage. What they do is, look,
create havoc.
Rockets were landing around my house. Yeah, I'd be worried. Like if my leader said to me, "Oh, don't worry, mate, they're just rockets," I'd be like, "What do you mean they're just rockets? Yeah, one lands on my roof. There's a problem, all right?" So from a military perspective, what these groups did is they got an opportunity where they had some advantages. These were very temporary advantages, and they took it. In the long run, this doesn't change the status quo at all. Israel still exists. It's got a bloody nose. It still exists. You haven't taken over new territory. Hamas area that it controls hasn't grown. And they took hostages. That's new. So now the Israelis, when they do the operation, they got to remember they've got 150 of your people. That's something that's unique. So look, the Taliban achieved more. The Taliban made America struggle to occupy the country. That's not what's happened here.
But what is the difference in the difference in the occupations from the United States and Israel, Sheikh? United States, I mean, was there more support from Pakistan to the Taliban, and population-wise? That's why Taliban were able to. What was it with
There's
Taliban
that
that
as
they were?
well. There's that as well. But remember, the Afghans have a long history of defeating bigger powers by utilizing their terrain. They gave the British a bloody nose in the 1800s. In fact, the last 200 years, every power that declined lost in Afghanistan, and then they declined. You've got America now, you've got the Soviet Union, you've got the British. What the Taliban did is they made the occupation hell for whoever wanted it. What the Israelis are doing, they're making it hell for the Palestinians to live there. They're just saying, why don't you leave? That's what they're doing. What the Palestinians did for once was show them we can make it difficult for you.
No. So let's go back here for a second. I mean, this would be actually a very good discussion. Also, kind of discussing what different occupations look like, and why one, in some ways, was defeated and the other one was not. But so Taliban fought, and you're saying that they used the train against the occupiers.
Yeah, so the biggest problem.
But there had to be some type of there had to be resources, something that they were constantly getting from somewhere that they could continuously fight the occupation.
Oh no, but remember, this wasn't the war the Taliban fought and the Mujahideen previously was they attacked your supply lines, so your troops couldn't fight. So to attack supply lines, you need small teams so they can't get caught. And you're not fighting your enemy head on. What you're doing is you're making sure the supplies don't get to them. And if this goes on for long enough, the war just goes in a circle. You're trying to protect your supply lines, now you're not fighting the enemy. And because this is mountainous territory, it made it difficult to supply your troops in the first place. So what the Afghan people have always done, they've never fought at the advantage of the enemy. The advantage of the enemy, we've got more firepower. Yeah. What they said is your firepower is fine. But if you can't get supplies to your equipment, your firepower is irrelevant. And that's what they did. So that's why they say, we've got the time, you don't. That's how they fought it. That's a bit different to what's going on in Palestine. So in Palestine, you have got a state that is occupying the place. They are implementing an apartheid system. So the biggest challenge you've got is you need to expel the people. The longer the people stay, you've got a problem. The other thing is...
So if the Palestinians would have fought from the beginning, Sheikh, this may not have been the case.
The fight in Palestine is in a much smaller area. There's gaps between people. Afghanistan is a bigger country in the mountains. Even they got 15 miles into Israel, yeah? They were only 10 miles away from the West Bank. That's how small this territory is. That's why for Israel, one loss in a war could be the end of Israel. That's how they view it. Every war is an existential war. If Egypt loses a war, it's not the end of Egypt. Syria loses a war, it's not the end of Syria. If Israel loses one war, because Israel's got no depth, a fighter jet can fly over the West Bank to Israel in a minute. That's how small it is. And the reason why Israel doesn't want the West Bank to become a Palestinian state is Israel's population, the majority of it, is from Haifa in the north down to Gaza, that small strip on the coast. That small strip is only 10 miles wide. The 20 miles next to it is the West Bank, which is in the mountains. So if there's a Palestinian state there, higher ground, looking down upon Israel, that's a security nightmare. So Hamas have accepted two states. The Palestinian Authority have accepted two states. The only people that don't accept two states is Israel. The reason why there's not two states is because of Israel. It's not because of Hamas have accepted two states.
Why is that, Sheikh? Why? Because it's worried that...
No, they don't understand. They unfortunately, resistance groups, their biggest problem is politics. So what you find is what they've accepted is we've lost most of Palestine. Let's just keep what we can. And even that Israel doesn't want to negotiate. Israel says, yeah, let's have two states. But then it says, no, we don't want to negotiate with Hamas. And unfortunately, this has been the problem with most of the Palestinian groups. That's why they say 1967 borders. They don't talk about 1948 borders. They all say 1967 borders. Yeah. And remember, Israel was an apartheid state. It's like South Africa. What they want is one rule, one system for their people, a separate system. And they already
But
running
Sheikh,
that.
even just one more question. South Africa, for instance, there's actually another question regarding international law and this whole issue of. But South Africa, Sheikh, how did they win this when it came to apartheid state and occupation? You know, I mean, it's a very similar scenario to Israel and the Palestinian issue.
Yeah. So the South Africans, what they did is they made the operation of the system, the apartheid system, impossible. They refused to accept there were two separate systems. They fought against the white minority. And remember, in most apartheid systems, you have minority occupiers who have to manage majority people. So if your management of the majority of the people is you're going to treat them as second-class citizens, once they unite, you've got a problem. So this is what happened in Algeria. This is what happened in many other parts of the world.
Ireland.
If you look at the British when they ruled over India, you had uprisings here and there, but you never had a mass uprising. The mass uprising was 1857, the mutiny. And Britain always knew if the Hindus and Muslims united, you're finished. They're like 250 million people. So when you have an apartheid system, you are reminding people every day through the legal system, through business, through trade, through education, you are second-class citizens. What you're doing, you're fueling an uprising. But the Zionists, do they have a system? Do they have a system that can deal with non-Jews? They don't. That's why Jews, for most of their history, lived with Muslims. They lived side by side with Muslims. Yeah, we protected them. They had rights. That's how they lived. And it's really funny. You know, Israel, yeah, it's actually a secular state. It's not a Jewish state that has Jewish laws. It's a nation for the Jews, but its laws are secular because the founders of Israel were all atheists. They were culturally Jewish. But what they say is this is a land where the Jews can come and live, and they can live as Jews. That's how they actually put it. So look, we have a very long history where we live side by side with non-Muslims. The Zionists, their history lasts 75 years that they can't live with anybody. They've got 2 million Palestinians in Gaza. They've got another 3 or 4 potentially million in West Bank. They have no idea how to deal with this. Absolutely no idea. And you know, when you occupy people, you might win in the short term. In the long run, you're always the loser because the people will rise up. So what they
last question here. But what does rising up look like here? Rising up means what? I mean, they are trying to rise up for the last 75 years. You know, I mean, look,
the problem
Afghan situation lasted 20 years against United States. United States had to leave another 20 years, let's say, with Soviet Union, another whatever years with Britain. But 75 years, is it that the resistance or the those who've been occupied don't have a clear vision of what they themselves want to do? What is it that's they're not able to win this occupation, Sheikh, or get rid of this occupation?
They're not able to win it because when the Zionist state was established, 1948, the biggest worry the Zionists had here was Egypt, was Jordan, was Syria. So they say this, that all the Arab countries went to war with them. Really, most of the Arab countries sent volunteers, they didn't send their armies. So even 1950s, their biggest worry was, we still may not survive. If Egypt goes to war with us, if Syria goes to war, we're finished. That was their view. So what they did, they went to war with these countries, whilst with others they tried to normalize. So Turkey accepted Israel straight away. They tried to make links with, so Iran, shockingly, Iran was their best ally in the Middle East under the Shah. It was only 1979 where things completely changed. So that's why they say sometimes, whoever we got close relationship with, you don't know, it could completely change going forward. So at the beginning of most of Israel's history, their biggest worry was other states, other nations. When Egypt signed the peace treaty, the biggest state threat has gone. So from that point onwards, the Palestinians realized the Arab nations have abandoned us, so they took on the resistance themselves as militant groups, as groups. And the problem is, Israel just got more resources than these groups. So these groups have had to fight against resistance with little help from the Arab rulers. And that's why the odds are stacked against them. They're a militant group fighting another nation. But remember, you got what, 3 or 4 million Muslims in Palestine, yeah? But you got 350 million plus Muslims in the region.
Yeah, but they're useless.
If the people in the region linked up with the people in Palestine, it's over.
That's what I'm saying, Sheikh. That's what I'm trying to say. Look, I know you. Forget the armies. Forget the this whatever. I'm asking. You know what I'm saying is that in Pakistan, in Afghanistan, without the TTP, without Waziristan, without the Muslims of Pakistan, Taliban inside Afghanistan would not have gained this victory that they have today. It's not possible. And then when you look at other regions, you know, even Kashmir, no matter what, there is still constant, whatever it is. But in this area, we do not find that type of help for the Muslims of Palestine. You don't find the Egyptians, where there you have like Pakistanis or like the Waziristanis, like this so-called tribal belt type of people who are willing to help their brothers in Palestine. You don't find them from the Qataris. I mean, most of these people are just worried with the thing in their hand and they keep shaking it like this. This is all they do all day long, and they have their scholars who sit there and give fatwas for them to do. As long as I just look at their scholars, akhi.
The main difference is, if you look here, America supported the Islamification during the Cold War of issues around the world, but therefore this is the best way to contain communism. So when Afghanistan was invaded by Soviet Union, America supported the whole Islamifying it, but it served their agenda. Obviously, what America didn't realize is you're going to create a whole new monster for yourself. In Palestine, they've actually tried to remove Islam from it because they wanted to remove the link with the wider Muslims. So you find America did everything it can to make the Palestinian issue a Palestinian issue, not an Islamic issue. Whilst in Afghanistan, they made it an Islamic issue because they go, that's the way we're going to defeat the Soviet Union. They never viewed Palestine. Palestine was not part of the Cold War.
Yeah,
Palestine was an American
you can say
strategy.
that for Soviet Union, but you can't say that for when the Americans were there. Americans were there for 20 years and still America had to be kicked out of the region.
In Afghanistan, you're saying? Yeah?
Yes.
Yeah, so no, when the Soviet Union invaded.
Of course, it was Islamization, but that affected not just that area, that affected the whole Arab world too. There were thousands, if not thousands of, they were coming to the region to fight against Soviet Union.
You got to remember, the other issue is the Pakistani state actively supported Afghanistan. If you look at the Arab rulers, they don't actively support.
That's what I'm saying, Sheikh. That's what I'm saying. So
what they do
have they become so shameless?
Service.
Have they become so shameless that there is not an ounce?
I think
there's not an ounce of Islam in them. There is not an ounce of Islam. There is not an ounce of taqwa of Allah. Not an ounce of. I think we have to point this out, Sheikh. That there are things that we are dealing with that we have to point out to these areas of the Muslim world. There is such a shame, Sheikh.
Your point is that, look, our rulers, they pick and choose when to use Islam. And when they do quote Islam, it's usually because it's in their personal benefit. It's not even an Islamic policy. So Erdogan, for example, or even Saudi, they sometimes use the Islamic card. Fine. But why do you not always use it? And always use it.
But isn't there a population issue here also? The Muslims, I think, look, Sheikh, populations in these areas of the world, whether it's Pakistan, whether it's Afghanistan, whether it's Waziristan, whether it's Uzbekistan, there is Islamic sentiments that's there that we are not seeing exist the way it should in the Arab world.
Yeah, there's some of
the
that.
Emotions that can you? I mean, it's. That those, just imagine if there was, I'm just saying, Sheikh, because even yesterday I attended, when the killing happened of that family, 6-year-old stabbed to that 26 times he was stabbed. The woman was stabbed 20 times.
Oh,
wow. The people, when we went there, you'll be shocked at the population is just worried about that silly Palestinian flag, which they think is going to give them victory. When you bring the flag of La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, the white and black flag, they reject it. They don't want it in the protest. They tell you, please don't bring this. They will say Taliban flag, or they will say, they will literally say no to the La ilaha illallah flag. It's unbelievable, Sheikh. And then they think they're going to gain victory from who? I don't understand.
Yeah, so what this is...
And then there is, it's... Sheikh,
look, we've got to keep in mind, the Ummah has undergone a long period of decline. So what that does, you will see some good with some complete contradictions. So I'll give you a simple example. When France was drawing pictures of the Prophet, what Muslims in Pakistan will do is their sentiment's been hurt, so they'll see a Western symbol, McDonald's, and they'll blow it up. Why did they do that? Because you've attacked my Prophet. There's no thinking involved.
I'm not saying that. No. Hold on. Akhi, it's not the issue of thinking. This is what that's what I'm telling you. You see, that's exactly what I'm pinpointing. I'm saying, you see the differences in the populations and their emotions connected to the Prophet ﷺ. I'm not saying that that's the solution, that to go out and go for a Western symbol and blow it up. We understand that's not the solution. But you see the sentiments of the people, the emotions of the people. Right? I can't do anything, but I'm going to hurt you some way.
But let me tell you, we're seeing it from that lens, I'm telling you, the Western leaders and the Muslim rulers, they're really worried. For them, the Ummah's too Islamic. For them, the Ummah's not in line with what they want to do. For them, Israel, what they're doing is a massive problem. That's how they're seeing it.
Here's the thing. I'll give you one more example. Yesterday, when I am speaking, somebody came and is telling me, this is a Palestinian issue, brother. We are Palestinians, we're addressing it. We are Palestinians. And I had to turn around and say, Akhi, I'm Muslim. I am Muslim. And I care about Palestine because I am Muslim. Then I started reading the Quran to them, the ayat, Subhanalladhi asra bi abdihi layla min al-masjid al-haram ila al-masjid al-aqsa alladhi barakna hawla. Akhi, I care for this land because it's Islamic land. I don't care. Why are we not having shows after shows after shows about Ukraine? So I mean, and then somebody will come and tell you, oh, thank you for your support for Palestine. What are you talking about, man? Thank you for your support for Palestine. Man, get out of here. What you talking nonsense for, bro? You should come and tell me you're a Muslim. Why aren't you standing with me? These emotions don't exist in a lot of activists who are so-called Palestinian activists who are calling for that weird flag and freedom of Palestine, which they have no vision what it means. Yani, the whole Muslim world only cares about Palestine because it's Islamic.
So alhamdulillah, I mean, that's a good look. Of course, there are issues, and we see in many areas there are issues the way the Ummah looks at things. There are obviously non-Islamic ideas have crept in, and so you've got a mishmash of everything. So that's why sometimes things happen, the response is not right? And this is why these sort of shows are good, where we unpack these. What's going on, what's Islamic, what's not Islamic, we need to do that. But we do see that, look, when Syria was going on, when people see Muslims being persecuted, the Ummah feels it, which means the concept of Ummah still exists. Yes, nation state is a problem. Yes, nationalism is a problem. But there's still something there that connects us with people from other countries because we're Muslims. So, next year, March, is the 100-year anniversary of the end of the Ottomans. And 100 years ago, they were like, we won the Crusades, we've ended Muslim politics, nation states have come about, job done. 100 years later, democracy is rock bottom, confidence in politicians is rock bottom, confidence in human rights is rock bottom. In fact, as far as they're concerned, the Muslims who don't have their own actual Islamic state, they seem to be more Islamic now than they were 100 years ago. So for them, things are going in the wrong direction. So I think, yes, we still have some way to go. But actually, compared to 100 years ago, 20 years ago, people didn't know the Muslim rulers were a problem. Today, people generally realize Muslim rulers are a problem. 20 years ago, look, we can reform Islam, we can make it compatible with the West. Now it's openly clear you can't, right? Now we're in a position where look at who the symbols are of their system. Trump, Macron, these sort of guys, right? In fact, I would say they're lucky there's no alternative yet. That's the only reason. They say that now. They said 1990 was the end of history, with the end of communism. Now what do they say? Oh, it's just the best we got, there's nothing else. That's what they say. They don't even argue for the benefits of their system. That's a scenario they're actually in. Now you don't, what do they say? Things are bad, but it's still better than all the rest. So Muslims need to realize that, look, you know, this whole, we need to become more compatible, we need to integrate, we need to take what they've got. They are abandoning what they believe in. Yeah, what did Donald Trump say?
What's the irony was the family that was killed, or the whole thing that happened the other day. If you look at the Facebook of the sister, she was holding, she has a thing on, like, in some ways supporting the Israeli, there's an Israeli flag, and then there is that, you know, something Palestine to the ocean. It's as if, you know, she was trying to play both sides, like, you know, we need peace. Yeah. And it was a lesson, an ibrah to be learned, that with all of that support and what you were thinking that you will get from that, person still came into your home, stabbed your baby, killed them, and stabbed you 20 times. So I think if the Muslims take any lesson from this, is that يعني ولن ترضى عنك اليهود ولا النصارى حتى تتبع ملتهم. But Sheikh, final thoughts on this? I mean, this is obviously we're both burning. The situation in the Ummah is, it's painful, Sheikh. It's painful to see what we're seeing. What are your thoughts, Sheikh? 5 seconds, if you
obviously, can. Look, they're going to invade.
They're going to invade. You don't think that they have to invade?
No, they're going to. The ground invasion they're going to do, and I don't think it's straightforward. I think it's going to be complicated, and I actually feel there's going to be unintended consequences.
So strategically, what would they have to do? The resistance would have to somehow drag it into months.
No. What the resistance is going to do is I suspect, what they've already done is put things in place.
I understand that, but what I'm saying is, if for them to get Israel, to make it look like it's losing, they would have to let it, drag it into weeks and months.
Oh, just weeks, yeah. So if they drag it into weeks, if they start taking hostages, and if the IDF starts losing lives, which they probably will.
Oh yeah, I mean, this is a scenario already done for
remember,
them.
They have to do a ground. This is the problem with grounding. This is the problem America had in Afghanistan and Iraq. Yeah. You control the airspace, fine, but you got to go to the towns and take over the territory. That's urban warfare. And in urban warfare, the defender always has the advantage. And remember, the Israeli military, in many ways, they're like Americans. A lot of their military is designed to protect the person. They've got loads of armor. Their tanks have got heavy armor. And the problem here is, how do you fight people who have no armor, who don't care? So the thing is, if a week or two have gone by and Israeli soldiers are dying, I'm telling you, the coalition government will turn against Netanyahu. And it's not straightforward. Israel's trying to show its superiority. We're bombing you, The whole idea is that, look, just give up. Look at what we're doing. We haven't even invaded yet.
Can the Egyptian army play a worse role than it's playing by getting involved in helping the Israelis?
No, they won't get. The Israelis don't need help to carry out massacres.
Oh, no. I'm saying that, in order to. I was thinking that maybe if the Israelis say that, look, you come in from the other way, and so they're willing to also take their. I mean, they're willing to take dead bodies.
No, what they'll do is they'll just say to Egypt, "Don't open the crossing. Let us kill people. Don't. We don't want the people to." Thing is, they've told
that's how the Egyptian army and the Sisi will help Israel, is to make sure that they keep the blockade, and so the slaughter takes place.
So this is why, if you don't actively help the Palestinians, you are helping the Zionists. Right? So they already said to the Palestinians, leave the northern area of Gaza. We're going to bomb the north. So if they all concentrate in the south, what do you think Israel's going to do? Yeah, it's the same. You know, in Syria, they did all these agreements in different areas where you would put down your arms and you'll be given opportunity to leave to go to the north, Idlib. And then eventually they were all in Idlib and they bombed them there. Right?
And now they're bombing again.
So if Egypt opened the Rafah crossing, that's a problem for Israel. If Hezbollah increase their attacks and start going into northern Israel, that's a big problem because now Israel have to fight on two different fronts. You split the Israeli army up. So already, that's two things. If the Muslim countries do, it completely messes up Israel's plan. If Hezbollah actually launch an assault, right, and Hezbollah is the more capable force here, if they launch it, Israel's a small army in the first place.
But will Hezbollah do Hezbollah? Will they actually do this?
I doubt. Even already, what I've seen is they are doing something to show the people we're with the Palestinians, but it's not to the level where Israel needs to be worried. In a way, it's like,
because what I see them doing is they're shooting some missiles here and there in no man's land in some
which is what they're always doing.
Some desert area and actually making it look like we're with you. And the same people who killed millions of people inside Syria in the name for the United States.
No, they're not. The thing is you know, Hezbollah has built its reputation on being anti-Israel.
Yeah, that's
so
it.
When this is going on, it's got to show its support base that look, we're taking advantage.
It's got to keep its face.
But really, if they open up a front in the north, that would be the worst thing for Israel. Now you've got to fight on two fronts. And also, 1 or 2 weeks into this war, Israel will start having problems with ammunition, with munitions, with missiles. It will start to run out. Because when you're at war, you get through equipment very quickly. This is the problem the Ukrainians have always had. They're in a war with Russia, so it's in a high intensity battle, you need resupplies. And Israel, it relies on foreign support for supplies. So what will happen is if a week or two go by, that's when America, I think, will start talking about a ceasefire. And they'll have no choice at that point. So that's why the problem is there's not a military objective. The objective is just a massacre, killing, to bloody know. That's not a military objective.
Yeah, I see. Yeah.
Yeah, this is to give you a cricket example. Yeah, if you're a fan of cricket, you have a test match, which is a 5-day game, and sometimes you get the last day where the team that's batting, they don't need to win; they just have to make sure they don't all get out, and that's not an objective. The team who always does that always loses, right? You have to go on the offensive. This is a problem Israel has. So they are doing this pure, and I would say, you know, even if Israel is going to carry out a massacre, right? In 3 to 5 years' time, we will be back at the same problem again. Because the underlying issue is not resolved of occupation. So what will happen is, look, Israel's getting into this problem, is every battle they're treating as a war, right? But the problem is there will be many battles. The actual war, they're not even dealing with. That's why, look, Israel might feel we achieved a great thing, we taught them a lesson. In 3 to 5 years' time, we'll be back again. And the reason why I say this, on the day before the 7th of October, they believed they were in a utopia. They believed, Netanyahu was saying that week, this is the most peaceful the Middle East has been.
Oh, the settlers were running around saying that even your rulers are with us. Do you remember that? They were running and they were screaming.
Yes. Even if Israel says we won this war, let's say they do win, right? We will be back here again.
Oh, I understand.
And the thing is, we're resisting. Our people are resisting, so they'll keep on doing it. You're telling your people we're living in peace. You're telling your people we've reached the utopia. So every time there's a flare-up, we're the utopia you promised us. Every time we're fighting, well, we're resisting, isn't it? That's what we're doing. That's why, you know, the resistance always has the advantage in the long run. So you look at France and Algeria, Britain in India. In the long run, they lost. In the long run, your people, your soldiers want to go home. This, they used to say, you know, obviously 9/11 happened 2001 in September. End of October, American forces went into Afghanistan. And they told their troops, you'll all be home for Christmas.
Yeah.
And then 20 years went by. And obviously soldiers want to go home.
Decades.
Yeah, and that's why Taliban were right when they say we've got the time. You may have your fancy Rolex watches, we've got the time. And Taliban prevailed in the end. You know, they're in power now. So, you know, I'm sure we're going to see brutal images. I'm sure, you know, we're going to feel this because our people are being bombed, yeah? But look, after 75 years, you have to carry out a major massacre. What does that tell you?
You try to subdue the
people.
people.
Not even 75, and you know, the final point on this, yeah? We lost Palestine once before for 88 years.
Almost 90 years, yeah.
Yeah. It's only 75 years yet. We're just warming up.
Please, Akhi, no, enough of warming up. I think it's time to get into action. I don't know how much more warming up.
We've been here. Look, we've been here before. And you know, it's funny, this Crusader example, I want to use you. You know, at that time, the Christian from Europe, they established a forward base in Jerusalem. And with the collaboration of corrupt Muslim rulers, they survived 88 years. Israel
they made a deal with
is the modern version of the Crusader state. Because what is Israel? It's a forward base for the West. And the lesson we've got to learn from Salah-ud-Din, what did he do? He dealt with the Muslims, the petty Muslim rulers that were in cahoots with the Crusader state. And once they dealt with that, it was finished. So that's why Israel's a problem, yes. America's a problem, yes. But none of this is possible without the Muslim rulers. That's how Salah-ud-Din Ayyubi ended the occupation in the 12th century.
And I think that's a very good way to end this, inshallah, Shaykhi. But even better way to kind of summarize what our brother Adnan Khan is saying. We say this to our brothers and sisters in Gaza and anywhere where they are resisting the way the Muslims in Gaza are resisting. We say to them, to summarize what brother Adnan is saying, wasbiru, wasabiru, warabitu, wattaqullah, la'allakum tuflihun. Literally the words, have patience and outdo your enemy in patience and continue your ribat and fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah promised لَعَلَّكُمْ تُفْلِحُونَ. وَجَزَاكُمُ اللَّهُ خَيْرًا وَالسَّلَامُ عَلَيْكُمْ وَرَحْمَةُ اللَّهِ تَعَالَى وَبَرَكَاتُهُ.
لا لن يطول الظلام ديننا لن يضام نحن جيل الهمام نحن فينا عمر لا 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 لن يطول الظلام ديننا لن يضام نحن جيل الهمام نحن فينا عمر صبح بدا نور ظهر نجم وشمس وقمر ألقى على الدنيا الدرر هذا عمر هذا عمر كل البرايا تنتظر أيامه البيض الغرر كي تستفيد من العبر هذا عمر هذا عمر لا لن تدوم الجراح بل سيأتي الصباح نحن أهل الكفاح نحن فينا عمر لا لا لن تدوم الجراح بل سيأتي الصباح نحن أهل الكفاح نحن فينا عمر